I wanted to start back after you got off tour from Big Mess. Did you, really want to take time to just decompress? Oh, here we go. Everybody's sitting down. And down they go.
Yeah.
1 moment.
Everybody
Please sit
settled.
down. Make yourselves comfortable.
I was the laziest person here. Someone started that.
It's like the backwards wave.
Oh, I feel like this is our congregation. So you came off tour from Big Mess. Did you guys want to spend some time decompressing, or were you like, right, we're just going to start writing right away? Like, where were you at that point?
We kind of just started right away. Yeah. For the most part. We went up to Hannah's parents' house in Northern California and started writing.
I feel like you guys never really take much time off. You're just like creative all the time, just ready to go.
We luckily enjoy it, and it's a way to kind of understand what we're feeling. So some people exercise, some people write in journals and stuff, and we just write music.
And what was the song that really was the jumping off point for getting this record started?
It was Deleter.
Deleter,
which is out right now. Come on. This is so weird. This is just abnormal to just like talk and get applause and stuff, but we'll get used to it.
I think they're into it.
Yeah.
And tell me about the genesis of that song. Like, where were you at? What was the lyrical inspiration? Where were your heads at?
We were up north, and the song really just like came to us in a really amazing way. It's sort of one of those things, like I know some artists go and write songs and work from lyrics. We work melodically and the lyrics come through the melody, and there's just a lot of stuff to say no to right now, and that song really came out of us pretty quickly.
That trip was like a breakthrough trip for our band as well, though. We really had a whole transformative experience there. Pretty much stayed up all day and night, and just that song just really, it was like the kickoff point of that whole era.
Was that the song where the fireplace lit?
There was. Me and Dan witnessed something that honestly I still can't explain. It's one of the scarier things I've ever seen in my life. But
Spirit.
We were midway through a 5-hour jam at 5 in the morning or something, and some people were laid out on the floor playing and
but
stuff, just
in a healthy way. It sounds.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
But basically, Dan and I are the only known witnesses to this, but a fireplace that had not been in use on the trip yet, just literally, I swear to God, my life just ignited while we were playing.
It was the spirit.
It was the spirit. The fire lit, and me and Dan looked at each other, and everyone else.
Nobody else knew.
They were
Everyone
just
was oblivious, and him and I are freaking out. Did you just see that?
And the next day, we just still weren't quite sure if what we'd seen was real or not, and to this day, it's one of those things that I still ponder of did that actually happen? That was psychedelic. It did. It actually did happen.
Yeah.
Wait, was this at your parents' house, or was this at the recording studio?
No, this was at my parents' house.
Well, so surely you know if there's a ghost in there.
It's the spirit.
The spirit of creativity.
I think it's the spirit that goes around to different bands and just gives you a song. It's like, you guys need this. Spirit came in, Deleter.
Ignite. So for this record, you decamped to El Paso, to Sonic Ranch, which is a very legendary recording studio out in the middle of nowhere, to work with Dave Sitek, who is legend. Tell me about how you hooked up with him and what was your decision process for working with him?
Well, he's a legend, and he's also a really intimidating dude. If you guys don't know, he's in TV on the radio, and has also produced a bunch of stuff. But we basically went and met him because we love everything he's done, and he sort of has this thing about him where you're like, oh, he's going to love or hate you, and he's going to tell you right to your face if you're going to do the album with him or not. And so we went and met him, and I don't know, it was really scary. He was really intimidating. Now we're friends. We got through the scary part, but all it really took was that conversation, right? Just hanging with him that day at his house.
Yeah.
He told us
like this crazy compound too. You feel like you're forbidden to enter. There's giant dogs, and it's sort of a wild scene.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was it was pretty instant kinetic thing.
Yeah.
And sort of he has the biggest heart ever, but it really cuts to the chase when someone just gives it to you straight, and just is straight up about your art and how he feels. But he's always coming from a place of support. It's not degrading you.
He basically was like, I believe you guys.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't believe any fucking musicians. I mean, part of my, that's me, that's a quote, so I'm not swearing, just to let you know. And it felt good to hear that. He was like, I believe that you guys believe what you're saying. And so he's like, and because of that, I want to work with you guys. And so there we went on the Dave Sitek journey.
Yeah, so down to El Paso, which is kind of his recording studio of choice, I feel like. But it is sort of a strange spiritual wormhole. Tell us all about what that experience was like. And you were down there for a month, which is a long time to be on this ranch.
Just anyone else wants to talk?
So Sonic Ranch it's like a 2,500. How many miles is it?
It's 3,500.
3,500, and it's on the Mexican border, right outside Tornillo, Texas. And the first trip that we did 2 separate trips there. The first trip was actually when they were right in the middle of first opening those camps, and I have a really distinct memory of. There's a song called "Promises" on the record, and which is pretty topical, and it talks a lot about the state of the culture that we live in and lack of empathy. And I have a distinct memory of walking out the doors, and I could hear the megaphones from the protest while we were making that song, and feeling really helpless, but then hopeful that we were at least doing the thing that we're best at, and hopefully that is going to be our best form of protest, because we would have liked to have been there protesting with them, but that song kind of came out of that whole process, and it was a really cool experience, because you can't. There's nothing around, you're just in the middle of the desert, and we'd start working around 9 or 10 at night, and a lot of times work till 10 in the morning, and Hannah would be cutting vocals at 6 in the morning.
It's really great.
Yeah, it was wild.
That was not
but
my call.
Dave's whole thing was just trying to get you out of your own mind, and to have you just open yourself up so that you can actually live the music, and that you're not in your normal routine.
Right, so you guys unplugged. Did you throw your phones into the desert?
Well, we talked about this before, but the strange thing about Sonic Ranch is you're so detached, and you're not using your phone, and you're so disconnected that you're actually connecting with yourself and your bandmates in a way you haven't, and you maybe thought you were, but you haven't in so long, that you realize you start figuring out what pieces of you are sort of broken and have been ignored. And so it became this intensive sort of therapy while we were recording. And so we have a lot of songs where we're in denial a little bit, and some songs where we're facing these truths that are really intense. And it was a pretty incredible experience together. Yeah,
for
it
sure.
really was.
It brought us closer together. Personally and musically. It was. I think the best word, Andrew said, transformative, and it feels like we're a totally different band as a result of that experience, and I feel more inspired than I ever have, and that's crazy at this point of my life to feel that way, but I'm extremely thankful if that's the case. And I don't want to speak for everybody, but it feels that I think about that experience every day since, and I'll probably think about making this record every day of my life until, it changed everything.
Were you going to say something? No.
Oh no! It was also there's some really hard moments as well. I had a full blown breakdown at some point. It was pretty. I didn't sleep for 4 days.
Yeah, why? Why didn't you sleep?
I don't know. There's just things going on in my life and family shit, and it just I was isolated in a place that I couldn't reach out in a way, and I wanted to be present in the band, but also was trying to I was spread thin mentally. And I don't know, like you said, it was a place that kind of makes you confront yourself, and there was some things I needed to figure out, and it sort of hit me like a ton of bricks. But honestly, that's why this record to me gives me a certain feeling, and it hits me in a certain way that none of our records have, because I attach these certain really intense and euphoric memories to it that kind of none of the other records. I mean, in those moments in time, they were the biggest deals. But now you hope as an artist that whatever you're making at the moment inspires you and you believe in the most. And for this record, that's definitely the case for me.
Christian, what do you think Dave brought to the record? How did he challenge you guys? I imagine he was quite challenging.
Yeah, he told us to stop thinking about thinking, in a way, if that makes sense.
That's good advice.
Yeah, that's very Zen kind of advice. But we would be doing takes, and he'd be like, "No, you're thinking too much." He's like, "I want you to play the guitar like you're 15 years old, and you've just, fell in love with a certain band, or you're hearing a type of music for the first time in your life. How does that make you feel? That's how you should be performing the song. That's how you should be playing." It's also like simplicity is the best answer. So there's a lot of space in this record. We didn't like go crazy, like overproducing anything. It's just, it breathes in this way. Our previous records haven't breathed before. And I think he really helped us focus on like the poignancy of lyrics and just like cut to the chase, and also keep it simple, and maybe don't use so many metaphors, and like say something straight, like it is what it is kind of thing. And we, for whatever reason in the past, wrote more cryptically or more, because a lot of the times the way we write lyrics, it's a subconscious like stream of thought that just kind of comes out, and we trust that. And in certain songs, we kind of worked oppositely and say, hey, what do we want to say in the song? There's a lot of crazy stuff happening in the world today. Let's do our part as artists and address certain things, whether it's, politics, or also addressing, dancing at 5 a.m. and what that feels like, and just going for these certain sentiments.
I was doing that.
Well, I was going to say
nice.
that there is a certain, politics aside, or perhaps entwined with, there is a certain seize the day vibe about this record, I think, lyrically and just sonically. So I think that's really powerful. Is that kind of how you felt?
Yeah.
Definitely.
We had like no choice. We had to seize it because it was like a place where you don't clock out. A lot of times in other studios we've been in, you go in at 12 and you leave at 7, and you go home and you become like normal again, and you wash dishes and
You just
you
live
watch
in it.
TV, or
We just lived in it.
this is like you are the music in a way.
So let's talk a little bit about the album title, Healer.
Yes.
Hannah, in particular, you've been through quite a journey with your health. I'd love you to just kind of explain where the album title came from, and where you were at and where you are now.
It's been a year. I'm just so happy last year is over, honestly, but it went. So I recently had brain surgery, which is insane. We were making this album, and I was also doing a solo show at Shepherd Ferry's Gallery. I'm plugging right now at Shepherd Ferry's Gallery in Echo Park. It was a very big deal, and I was like painting, and we were writing, and I was just so in it. And we're also parents, it's just like a lot, doing a lot, and I just started feeling really weird, like almost the way I've heard people describing having a stroke or something. And we decided to reach out to a doctor, got an MRI, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, I had to get brain surgery. It was pretty scary. And something about having something that real happen to me, I started just feeling like what Andrew was saying, it helped everyone sort of open up the fact that we're all sort of suffering in this way, and everyone, whether it's a physical thing or an emotional thing or whatever it is, like me being like, yo, I have this real problem. Someone else is like, well, they like soften people to tell me what they were going through. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, we are all in need of healing, and not in like some ayahuasca sense, just like in a community sense. Like we all need to be like open that we're in pain or that we're scared, and that whatever it is, like no one is not going through something. And it was this beautiful awakening for me and for all of us together. And this band was my was my everything. I mean, my mom sourced out the best brain surgeon, so props to my mom. But on like daily support, like Christian, like these boys, it was just amazing. They held me up. We kept writing to keep me distracted, and like I kept making artwork. And I don't think without that, like honestly, stress is like the #1 cause of sickness, I realized. So there was something, there was something amazing about that. So that's how the album title really came to be.
Yeah.
And it's also lyrics from the song Deleter.
Oh yeah, there's a line in Deleter. It says, "All this time been burning with a fever. It turns out I've always been my healer."
Yeah.
So it kind of like informed everything without us knowing what was happening in a way, which is cool.
Hannah, you once said that when you're painting, you're a better musician. I'd love you to elaborate on that kind of connection.
Yeah, I actually painted like the whole time we were in Texas, which I think kept me more sane than the boys, I have to say. Like the studio was like covered in artwork, which is pretty rad. And actually our album cover, that was done in Texas, like in the studio, which was pretty was pretty cool. But I think there's something like, I have no technical skills with music, and I like went to art school, and I know my brother was like, do not major in fine art because it will make you a bad artist. And like for anyone who's doing fine art, I'm so sorry. But the truth is, it's like the more you know technically, or at least for me, it's like the more you think about, the more you sort of stop the subconscious from happening. That's like your like innate thing is actually the purest form of creativity. And when you're like, oh, but I know how to draw a perfect face, or like I know how to play that so much better on the piano, and you're like writing on a banjo, and that's the way you feel like the song feels right, but you can't play it. Like, I don't know, something about painting taught me to not overthink music, and just to approach it with that same just like smacking the paint down, and that's how I write songs, and it's so liberating. And then I feel like with the boys, whenever I talk about music, I talk about it through color, and that like helps us all in a really trippy. Sometimes they're like, "What are you talking about?"
It can get very abstract.
Yeah, I'm just like, heighten the silver, bring down the blue. We need a little dash of pink, and everyone's like, "God damn."
Hannah, you're also like the most blunt person sometimes with that. We'll just like be ripping on a jam or something. We'll be like so proud. She'll be like,
good.
I fucking hate it. And just like cut us
The
down.
whitest thing I've ever heard.
I know.
Oh, cool.
But there are these situations, I'm not like, there was this, on an old album we brought in a whole string quartet for this song, and everyone was like, dude, this is so dope, we got a string quartet. I was like, this sounds like a Velveeta commercial. Like, and people were so bummed, but I think everyone stepped back and was like, oh, it does sound like a Velveeta commercial.
The lost tapes.
Yeah.
Where are they?
We have it. We'll drop it one day.
Grouplove Velveeta. Now, I would like to talk about, you also worked with Malay, who is another legendary producer. And that was like a few months after you worked with Dave, or whatever the timeline is. But how was he different to Dave, and what did you kind of draw from that session, or those sessions?
He was so different from Dave. It was unbelievable.
But similar too in a strange way.
Yeah. Well, we were in LA with Malay in like a super nice studio. like just completely different.
There was like assistants that would go get you food if you wanted, you know, and like strange. But
Malay's worked with Lord and Frank Ocean, so yeah.
And he's a legend. Malay is so supportive of all your ideas, where Dave is a little bit more like me, where he's like, that's terrible. And I would be like, that's not cool, be cool. Like, that's a Dave thing. And Malay's like, let's try that, it's beautiful, it's a great idea. You're so talented. Like, really, like, encouraging the artist, nurturing the child.
So way more kind of LA vibes then.
Yeah, way more LA vibes. And that, honestly, that was after I found out I had to get brain surgery, so I needed that. Like, that was a time when we were really, like, nurturing was good.
I think what they both have in common, they both are masters at all their like gear in their studio, and if you want to chase something down or a sound, they know the exact piece of equipment. They know how to operate it, and we're like, what is that thing, you know? Like, which is really cool. They're both like super talented at producing and like creating really unique sounds and kind of doing their job, which is cool to see. But
Hannah, were you like, this song needs more blue? And Malay was like, hang on, I've got exactly the plug-in for that.
It's a Cyborg 53621. It takes 12 years to learn how to use it. Like, and like Dan would be like, oh my God, that thing is amazing. And there's 4 of those in the world. And then it's just like gear talk for like, I can't even tell you how long.
Hannah will be like, oh my God, this again.
She's like, I'm going to dip and go paint.
You guys sound so dorky.
I sound like such a bitch, but I'm not. But like, whatever, I'm not.
It's always funny, I promise.
You guys have been making music for a long time now. How has your approach to art and creativity changed over the past decade?
Wow.
Big question.
Whoa.
I think some of it, I mean, you know, you accrue this much experience, and the cool thing about making this record was a lot of it was unlearning certain like characteristics or traits that you had kind of built up over time and that you thought is what makes you, this is what I do, you know, I have this thing that I can play, I play in this style, these are my influences. And the nice thing was to deconstruct that and to let it just naturally flow out of you. And I think that right now in this phase, at least for me, is the most is the biggest change. Is that I feel like I'm just not thinking about the music anymore. it sounds so cliche and but it's true. I just try not to overthink it and just let it happen and kind of go into the process with reckless abandon. And really, this band taught me how to do that first, but the process of this record and how deep we dove into it, it blew the doors open, and now that's where I'm at creatively.
It's like trust the source, instead of like, there's so much stuff you can do. There's so much stuff to cover up your voice and cover up, like double the instrument. And we were just like, we just want to like get to the source, which is the song and what we're trying to say. And actually, this is a great time to tell you guys, we're a 7-piece now because we feel like it's so important to play this album the way it wants to be played without using tracks or like doing all the stuff that you can use today to make more money and make it easier to play it. But we want to play it as true as we can. So we got 2 new members. I wish they could come out right now. Joe and Cam, come on out. But yeah.
We actually have three new members. I want to introduce Ben, who joined us on this ride, who's amazing. He's been a big source of inspiration for us too, because Ryan, our original chord drummer and producer, moved on to do other things, and it was a very what's the word? Amicable kind of split, and we had this hole in the band. We're like, how are we gonna fill this hole? And Ben came in and just added a beautiful spirit and camaraderie that really helped us achieve this. Everything we got done on this
just
album.
The homie.
So,
Likewise, too.
Yeah, he's the man.
The homie.
So.
Look at this amazing group love. Boom, boom. So you guys are going to release the record in March. You're going to hit the road. How excited are you to get out and play all this stuff live?
So excited. So ready. It's been a very long road.
Been too long.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and we're teaming with Headcount that is going to register voters before the shows, and Ally Coalition, which is LGBTQ organization, and the local chapter will come out, and we're really excited to not only to play new songs that represent so much of all of who we are, but there is that side of us that feels like we need to interact with these organizations and help them have a voice in our fan base and do some good.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to love you and leave you. Thanks so much for chatting.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for coming out,
You guys.